Welcome to part 41 of the Basic Training Booster Pass Edition. Today we're going to cover everything you need to know to play Rome Avanti on 150cc. The recommended build for this track is going to be one of the Peachette clones, Teddy Buggy, Azure Rollers, and Paper Glider. We're going to start off with some janky looking counter hop mini turbo action, followed by a trick off the ramp while grabbing our first coin. This first drift is honestly more trouble than it's worth since it only saves maybe a few hundredths of a second, so feel free to ignore it and just do the second left drift and the right drift instead. After that, we're going to drift up this long, windy ramp, build up a super mini turbo, and then immediately do another left drift to build up a super mini turbo before tricking off the bridge. You want to be looking ahead a bit so that you can make sure to aim at the corner of this little bend in the road. If you're too far to the left, you'll just fall off, obviously, but if you're too far to the right, you'll hit this weird patch of dirt that will cause you to get flung really far out to the side. The other thing to point out about this set of drifts is that if you look to the left, you'll see this elevated bit on the ramp that has these big bumps on it. This is a solid wall, not a border that you can drift over, and it's very easy to clip this when you're coming out of the bridge section. Care to guess how many runs I've lost to this bullshit? Anyways, like I said before, after the last trick, we're going to land in a left drift, build up a mini turbo, and then do another right drift before tricking off the ramp. Just like before, that right drift doesn't save a ton of time, so feel free to ignore it, but you do want to make sure that when you land in a right drift. This is because we're going to grab the 3 coins around this wide right turn and build up an ultra mini turbo, and if you start the right drift after you land, then you won't have the time to get to it. Coming up on the first completely counterintuitive portion of the track, after building up the ultra mini turbo, we're going to do a left hop into a left drift off the ramp, but there's about 40,000 different ways for this to go wrong. Well, 2 if we're being pedantic. The 2 obstacles that we're trying to avoid are this obviously gigantic statue in the middle of the track and this weird little outcropping of a wall right here. In order to do this properly, you need to start this left drift from the right-hand side of the stairs and not take too tight of a line when doing the trick. If you did everything correctly, you should go right in between the 2 obstacles, at which point you're going to want to do a counter hop right drift to mini turbo trick off the ledge before the first mushroom shortcut. The shortcut does need to be taken kind of specifically as well. Basically what I do is hang a wide right drift off the stairs and only tighten up after going off the stairs. This helps me get around the big curb while maintaining a tight line through the shortcut, and if you've got good soft drifting, then holding right while in midair after going off the stairs will allow you to build up an ultra mini turbo more quickly. If you're having trouble with that though, then just release the super mini turbo as quickly as you can to make sure that you can get this trick off the fuzzy bastard in the sewer. One more mushroom cut and we are on to lap 2. This first turn is deceptively wide, and you have more than enough space to hang a fairly tight drift to build up an ultra mini turbo, but after that we're on to the second completely counterintuitive portion of the run. This trick ramp leads straight into an angled wall, but we still want to drive almost straight ahead so that we can build up a couple of mini turbos. Now what makes this part of the run so weird on your first couple passes through are these gigantic red arrows that make it look like you're about to have to hang a left, but in reality there's a roundabout just after these arrows that goes to the right. It's really stupid, but I'll talk about that more when we get to the full run. For now, just build up a super mini turbo, or once again if you got good soft drifting, an ultra mini turbo, and then just drive straight for a bit. When you're about to head up the stairs, do a left drift and then mini turbo trick off the stairs. Land in a left drift for alignment purposes only, and then wait until you're basically going all the way off the stairs to do your trick. You're gonna think you can trick a lot earlier than you actually can, so you need to delay this a little bit. After your final trick, build up an ultra mini turbo and then drive straight for a bit more, and then do a right drift just as you're about to go past this turn. This should buy you enough time to mini turbo trick off the ramp. This next ultra mini turbo, unsurprisingly, requires that you have excellent soft drifting, but it's 100% worth it if you're able to get it. The timing is incredibly tight here though, so I wouldn't recommend trying to learn this until you've gotten a good handle on all the other strategies that this course has to offer. Now that being said, the rest of the track is pretty straightforward for the most part. Just some drifts into the chain chomp section before making our way back to that confusing courtyard from lap 1. This bit is taken somewhat differently now though because of how we enter the courtyard. Instead of mini turbo tricking, what I recommend is just to do a normal trick off the first ramp and then immediately counter hop right drift to go off the next ramp. This will let you get an ultra mini turbo just like before. We're going to use this to do some glider vectoring before landing in a left drift. We're not going to get a mini turbo here though. This is purely to buy us some time to start a right drift so that we can get a super mini turbo and then take the final shortcut shroomless. There's really not much more to the shortcut than that. It's pretty straightforward. And that's it, we're done. Before checking out my personal best though, let's take a quick look at the world record. Watching for a few seconds, you can immediately see why I didn't go for any of this nonsense in my own run. Everything you're seeing on screen does save time, but the timing and positioning of all these strategies is ridiculously precise, and any deviation is going to cause you to either take terrible lines or just straight up run into a wall. I tried to engineer my own run such that you could actually use everything I just showed you online, so hopefully it's not too crazy. Speaking of my own run, let's check it out. And we're more than 80 videos into the series by now, so you all know how this works. Drop a like and a comment if you found the video helpful, since this helps it get spread to more people, and according to more than one comment I've gotten, my content is some of the most slept on YouTube, so it'd be cool if you could help me fix that. Thank you very much. Now, let's talk about Rome AVANTI. Despite the fact that it's one of the worst designed tracks in the entire game from a visual standpoint, it's a heck of a lot of fun to play. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can those two statements possibly not contradict each other? Well, let's talk about what it is that I find so distasteful about the track first. And if you couldn't have guessed from the little miniature rants earlier in the video, it pretty much comes down to the fact that this track is just so needlessly confusing to learn. The main problem is the gigantic red arrows. They're all over the place on this track, probably more so than any other city course in the game. And the issue is that in a lot of cases, their function is more about blocking off sections of the track that are only supposed to be available during each lap, as opposed to actually telling you where you need to go. This is why you can have situations like that roundabout on lap 2, where you have arrows pointing left when you're literally supposed to take a right turn, like right afterwards. And the thing is that visually they're the most striking things on the track, so what happens on your first couple passes through is that your brain is receiving conflicting information about where it is you need to go. And I've never gotten so turned around on my first couple times through a course as I did with this one, and yes, I'm including Berlin byways in that analysis. Now, all that being said, after about 10 minutes of time trialing, you basically don't even notice the arrows are there anymore, and so this quickly becomes a non-issue. And once you're past that point, the strategies are a lot of fun, both to learn and to execute. That's because there's never really any downtime like long glider sections or straightaways, but there's also not anything super precise outside a couple of the Ultra Mini Turbos. So the track strikes a really good balance between keeping your hands busy without absolutely destroying them. And for me, that's more than enough to ignore what minor gripes I do have with the track. And that's everything you need to know to play Rome AVANTI on 150cc. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell before you go so that you don't miss any of my tutorials. Thank you all very much for taking the time out of your day to do some basic training, and as always, I will see you in the next video.